No good fascist can continue to try to lie blatantly and obviously and stupidly the way that these guys have been doing without the help of a good old propaganda network to tell their viewers that everything that's happening is actually great. It's on the up and up. Charles Payne of Fox Business says that you should celebrate what's going on.
You remember that one, right? 1980, Kool and the Gang released their biggest hit, Celebration. Listen, it became an international anthem of positivity and joy. Well, 200 days into the second Trump administration, there is a lot to celebrate and certainly a lot to be optimistic about. Think about this. Just yesterday, Tim Cook in the White House, they announced $600 billion to commit to invest in the United States. It's going to create 450,000 jobs, manufacturing at 79 factories. And believe me, they're not alone. And despite experts warning that tariffs will crush the economy and that anything above 10% tariff would never work, well, the wheels of commerce are moving pretty nicely. That second quarter GDP number was strong. In America, believe it or not, folks, we have the best inflation surprise index in the world. I want to bring in our Council of Economic Advisors Chairman Stephen Myron. And, Stephen, the naysayers have been pushing back on everything the administration has tried, and yet here we are. So let's talk about these accomplishments for the first 200 days.
Charles Payne there is dancing to Celebrate by Kool and the Gang. Celebration by Kool and the Gang. Because that's a good way to pull the wool over people's eyes and makes them go, oh, yeah, there must be a celebration here. Because despite the fact that all of my prices, everything that I'm buying have gone up, despite the fact that people have lost all these jobs, despite the fact that real job numbers just told us that this is a disastrous agenda that's actually hurting real Americans, let's listen to a song and listen to Charles Payne dance in front of it instead. The stupidity is way off the charts. You know what? Let's go back to that same jobs numbers video that I just showed you guys, where what's his name? Stephen Moore actually had some real things to say. I want you guys to look at the bottom middle of this Brady Bunch looking video here, when Maria Bartiromo gives those horrible job numbers because they just came across her and everyone has their actual real first reaction. Charles Payne was on that panel too. Look what he said.
The NASDAQ down about 200 going. 73,000 jobs. 73,000 jobs created in the month of July. Number just coming out.
And that's total.
4.2.
You hear him? He kind of murmured there. There were like four of them. Oh my God. And he said, and that's total. And that's total. Total disappointment is what it was on Charles Payne's face. Before then, he was given his marching orders to act like this is glorious. That's Charles Payne. These are the people that are telling you that things are wonderful. You know why? Because things are wonderful for them, because they're getting paid. There's another guy who's getting paid. His name is Tim, maybe you guys heard him, Tim Cook, CEO of Apple. So he went into the Oval Office the other day and handed Trump a trophy, a meaningless trophy, because he knows he's got to butter up the stupid king in order to continue to get any kind of a cutout and carve out from these horrible tariffs that will destroy every company, which honestly, not the ones as huge as Apple, but it'll destroy the consumers that they'll pass all those costs on down to. So he needs to find a way to make himself look good. So he's buttering up the king.
This box was made here in the U.S., California, and this glass comes off the Corning line. It's engraved for President Trump. It's a unique unit of one. It was designed by a U.S. Marine Corps corporal, a former one, that works at Apple now.
That's good. He's done well.
Designed it for you. And the base comes from Utah and is 24 karat gold. And it sits, I'll take the liberty of setting it up.
Wow.
Well, let's see. There we go. Congratulations,
Thank you
Mr.
very much.
President.
It's
Thank you so
fantastic.
much.
What the fuck does Donald Trump need a trophy for? An Apple trophy from Tim Cook. Congratulations, Mr. President. Congratulations. I walked up and I gave you some 24 karat gold plated award, some kind of trophy that was made by a veteran who now works for Apple. So you should really be buttered up now. because you're f***ing everything up. So let me give you something. And so you can act like you're so great at this, and this having this award ceremony in the middle of the White House to make all of us look like we've done something as people actually suffer. This is what we're living in. It's all fake. It's all smoke and mirrors. And this guy walked up there, put that up there so he could get favor from the king. The king sat there with his robe on and his feet crossed, and there's a few stairs looking down at the court jester on the left, and all the people who want to have some kind of favorable life in this country. And you offer something to the king, and the king goes, "I like it. It's gold plated. I'm a tacky ass. Please put it on the side and send the next fool in." That's what we're living in. Let me tell you what Tim Apple is actually why he was doing that. Because what they announced was a $600 billion investment from Apple. So Donald Trump is celebrating, as Charles Payne was doing. And also hundreds of thousands of new employees from those investments all over the United States of America. I mean, it's exactly what Donald Trump said he was implementing by pulling off these tariffs that are destroying so many people's lives, right? Let me give you details about that investment, because it is. It's hundreds of billions of dollars of investment from Apple. Here's some details. And I'm going to give you the good parts about this. I'm just going to tell you how much of it is new. Back in February, right when he was in office, Apple said it would invest $500 billion and hire 20,000 new U.S. employees over the next 4 years. Now, Apple is going to add another $100 billion to that commitment, making that $600 billion that they're talking about, right? Apple spelled out how it's going to spend some of that money at that White House event, including a pledge to spend $2.5 billion expanding its work in a Corning plant in Kentucky. That's why Trump mentioned Kentucky there, where it makes glass for iPhones and Apple Watches. Apple says it will eventually ensure that all of its devices sold worldwide will use American glass, even though it didn't really spell out how much of that work was already being done in America. That's a little bit of the hint of how this is going on. But think about this. This isn't the first time that Apple has announced a pledge like this. In 2021, when Joe Biden was president, it announced a plan to invest $430 billion in the U.S. over 5 years and hire 20,000 employees. Some of those plans involved new construction, like a new engineering hub in North Carolina. Others involved expansions of existing facilities or construction that was already underway, like a $1 billion campus in Austin. So they do things like this. There's investments in the country when they're building certain parts, which in this particular case for that investment is for the glass of iPhones and Apple Watches. Now, when it comes to the rest of their products, we'll see. As Bloomberg notes, Apple's announcement from February was really an acceleration of its earlier plans. It meant Apple was planning to spend an extra $39 billion a year and to increase its hiring plans by 1,000 people per year. So pause for a second. These are additions. It's just not the same numbers that they're touting and acting like Donald Trump just brought in $600 billion of new investment. He brought in $100 billion more from what was already pledged, that was on top of what they already pledged before that. So using that same logic, Apple's Wednesday announcement means it's planning on spending another $25 billion a year above its earlier plans. No word yet, though, about any additional hiring, though Apple did say its work with Corning would increase the workforce there by 50%. So, as far as building their iPhones, because we're talking about the glass, so does that mean that Apple's going to start making iPhones in the US as Trump has demanded? No, they say. As we discussed before, recreating the supply chain Apple would need to make iPhones in the US seems close to impossible, and certainly not something that Apple could pull off in a few years, even if it wanted to. And why would they want to when they're able to create things like the iPhones and use other parts from other parts of the world and make it for less? And every year that you buy the new iPhone 17, 18, 19, and 20, the prices still go up anyway. And then they have hundreds of billions of dollars that then, as they say, they're investing back into certain parts of the world, including the United States. By the way, those are investments. It's just not as large as that they're claiming it is to make Donald Trump look great. And for Donald Trump to continue to look great, Tim Apple walked in with a trophy and said, "Here you go, King." So why is Apple doing this? It would most obviously like permanent relief from Trump's tariffs. Why would you want relief from something that isn't harmful? So far, Trump has granted Apple some immunity from some of its tariffs on foreign manufacturing, but not all of them, which is why Apple has said it will have paid some $2 billion in tariffs over its last 2 quarters. Not years, last 2 quarters. $2 billion in tariffs. Apple and other tech companies are also hoping Trump will keep pushing on their behalf to beat down other countries' tech regulations. Apple is particularly vexed by the European Union, which has forced the company to do things like change its iPhone chargers and open up its app store. So they, in exchange for the extra added on investment that is supposed to be for American workers, what Apple wants is less regulations for them to sell their things in other parts of the world that have more regulations than we do. That deregulation push that everybody wants from these rich folks, they're getting more of it by bribing Donald Trump with a trophy and some more money that they already were pledging already. But at the end of it all, this is what the effect will have as they're celebrating and talking about all this money coming in. This is from CNN. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is where real folks actually deal with things.
This is going to hit a lot of products that we Americans love to buy. Computers, electronics, coming in from countries like China, Vietnam, Malaysia being hit with 30, 20, 19% tariffs. Clothing and shoes coming in from China, Vietnam, India going to be hit with 30, 20%, 25 tariffs. Watches now on the list because of Americans' love for Swiss watches. That's going to be tariffed at 39%. Alcohol coming in from the European Union, countries like France and Italy. That's wine and spirits going to be tariffed at 15%, and toys being tariffed at 30 to 20% coming in from China and Vietnam. There are many, many estimates to suggest what this may cost American families. The most recent estimate that we have is from the Yale Budget Lab just this month, projecting that because of all of these tariffs, if they stay in effect, it's going to cost the average family $2,400 a year.